Hello, and welcome back to Then, Now, and Tomorrow. As you can see, we're doing things a little different today. It's just you and I. We started this podcast because I had a lot of curiosity about what had transpired for me in my own career journey. I started asking questions around safety, specifically in the workplace. And if it was possible to feel safe at work, if it was possible to feel safe out in the world, more importantly, if it was possible to feel safe in our bodies. And that led me into asking questions to other leaders who were doing amazing things. And that sparked the idea of capturing those conversations. We have spent many months, almost 2 years now, having conversations with incredible leaders across the world. We started off doing this in person, and we started to notice that we would love to have voices from around the world. So many of our conversations allowed us to explore the topic of safety, whether it was in our bodies, whether it was in our organizations, whether it was around the world. And we have met some incredible people. These individuals, these guests that came, so many of them were my friends. And those who I had met for the first time became dear friends. It was such an honor to invite each and every single person into the studio, whether it was virtual or in person. And those that I got to hug for the first time and for the 19th time, it was an absolute honor to share space with them and to share the depths of their knowledge, their wisdom, and their expertise. This idea of safety is so personal to me. It started in my childhood and it followed me all the way into my career. And as I started to have the experiences that I had, I became really curious about exclusion. And that's where I entered into this exploration. And I was fortunate enough to have the curiosity around nervous systems and the neurochemistry of what happens when we are excluded and what happens when we are included. And that curiosity invited me down rabbit holes of affective neuroscience and relational neurobiology and epigenetics, and really diving deep, deep, deep into those topics to really understand how we as humans can have a different experience, whether it's at work or whether it's in our social lives or whether it's in our families, whatever that means to us. I think a world of safety is possible. I think that the commitment to showing up differently is what is required in order for us to create that new world. So how do we get there? And what do we need to do personally to make that happen? Let's take a little trip down memory lane. Let's look at some snippets from the guests and let's see what calls to you as we revisit some of the most amazing conversations that we've had in the studio. And I would love to start with Adina Sterling, where she talked about the price of conformity in competitive spaces.
When the basis of belonging is conforming to a group, it's not belonging. That's a contingency. That's a criteria, and it's not acceptance.
I want everyone to take that in. We also talked to Dr. Inge Hansen, where she explored with us the cycle of helplessness with intimate partner violence and how that plays out in workplaces.
Helplessness is a sense of it's the ultimate lack of power or control, right? It's a sense of not being able to impact your environment or get your needs met in a really basic and foundational way. And I would say one of the reasons that it's quite relevant here is we can think of helplessness as one of the defining experiences of trauma.
We talked with Jill Nagel, and we talked about white supremacy and how that lives in our everyday lives.
The mythology is that white people are superior, and that is not true. However, mythology also means ways of thinking and stories that are woven into the fabric of our daily lives. So in that sense, white supremacy mythology is so much a part of the air we breathe. It's the water that we swim in and we don't know because we're the fish.
And here's Sarah Payton, who is the expert, as you all know, on resonant language.
One of the things that we can do is we can begin to learn the difference between transactional instrumental language and the kind of language that brings us to life. And sometimes people think being brought to life isn't the most appropriate thing for workplaces. But heck, we're spending so much of our lifetimes in the workplace. Yeah. We might as well be alive there.
Next up is Loveland Nwadi, and she explored racism and affirmative action through South Africa's historical lens.
Apartheid was essentially affirmative action for white people at its best.
Wow.
At its worst, it was a crime against humanity. But at its best, it was affirmative action for white people. And so when you now put in legislative requirements that say you will hire Black people, you will make sure that they are progressing in your organizations, you will make sure that people of color are taken seriously in the workplace, etc. Women as well. So it wasn't just about Black people. It extended to women and other marginalized groups, but it was mostly around race. What that created was a really untenable situation in organizations.
Absolutely.
Because what? And so, because literally the person who served you tea and coffee, because that was all they would allow Black women to do, for example, or the person who only took notes in the meeting now has to be trained, prepared, taken seriously to also participate in decision making.
I loved my conversation with Rainbow Markel, where we talked about childhood trauma and how it informs our everyday lives.
Children are looking for two things at all times: of am I loved, and am I safe?
Yeah.
In talking about trauma with children, the thing we say over and over and over again is children need to feel safe.
Yeah.
So to break it down that we come into the world needing those two things really helps people that are working with young children to understand that it's an okay thing to need. It's vital to provide safety for children.
My conversation with Roxy Manning laid out a playbook and a guide on how to have anti-racist conversations.
And so anti-racist conversations are kind of grounded in Dr. King's work around like the framing of positive and negative peace. That all those times I stayed silent, I was making negative peace. I was keeping everything on the surface harmonious, but I wasn't actually having the conversations we needed to have to create change. And now anti-racist conversations say, when these things happen, we're going to talk about them. We're going to name them. We're going to work to find solutions so that we can actually get positive peace, where the peace is predicated on everybody's needs being met.
Stu Crabb and I talked about how to build organizations that thrive.
This is the friction between what was and what is yet to be. And the reason for that is quite simple. Psychological safety is the core organizing principle of the brain, right? Before any of the higher brain functions even get to play much of a role, the role of our amygdala in our limbic system is to regulate this sense of, do I feel safe with the outside world? And it's one of the principal reasons why, humans in the system find change in organizations really hard. Well, guess what? The same is true in society. I mean, the workplace is really just one manifestation of society.
One of my absolute dear to my heart topics with Dino Anderson is how to bring dignity back into the workplace.
And here's what I say. You may not have all the answers. You won't have all the answers. What's great about you starting is that you enable other people to come to that table and share with you, right? And see you and reflect, right, to you, both your own dignity, but also, right, when they can do that with you, that means that they're trusting. That means that you've created a place where they can actually step in, right, as themselves, both for you and with you.
And the conversation where I was most emotionally moved was with Stacey Haynes, where we talked about somatics and how our bodies are the doorway to getting everything we want.
What I love about somatics is, there's this yearning. People yearn for wholeness. People yearn for being connected. People yearn for feeling like they belong someplace. None of that is possible without actually also returning to ourselves and return to our bodies. It remains a good idea or a concept. What's potent about somatics or embodied transformation is it's highly pragmatic, and then it connects us back into some of the most meaningful things in our lives, like purpose, like belonging, like learning how to yearn or long as a positive thing that can be a guide toward what we want in our lives. And then learning new practices that so often either trauma or our social conditions, right, our families, or the social norms and rules we learned to live by didn't teach us. We can relearn boundaries.
I Belong is about asking questions. I Belong offers content and conversation that really gets us to the heart of safety. And the question around, can we feel safe in the world? Can we feel safe in workplaces? Can we feel safe in our own bodies given what is happening all around us all the time? And the question comes with answers. Those answers are different for me as they are for you. Let's continue this journey asking these questions and exploring for ourselves what we need to create a world that feels safe for all of us. Of course, every conversation was amazing, and we just didn't have enough time to get snippets from each of the fantastic and amazing guests. When you listen to those snippets or any of the conversations that you've heard in the last couple of years here together on this podcast, what calls out for you? Where do you feel your heartstrings being tugged? Where do you notice that you need to kind of lean into around yourself? Is it addressing anxiety? Is it addressing depression or burnout? Is it really being able to speak up for yourself, or really allowing yourself to lean into the discomfort of conflict and saying the things that you've been avoiding saying? My invitation is to really see where your nervous system still finds itself dysregulated, still finds itself getting activated. Wherever those little moments are, please turn toward yourself. Please get curious. Please lean into you and hold that warmth, hold that curiosity, and hold that care. I Belong is about rewiring the right hemisphere. That right hemisphere regrounds us, connects us back to our bodies, and allows us to see the interconnectedness of the world and the interdependence of each other. Are there parts of you that are afraid of support or asking for help? Are there parts of you that are longing to be seen and heard? Are there parts of you that are desiring more connection in the world, not only with others, but more with yourself? Whatever it is for you, I want you to take a moment and really see if you can let this land. We don't lose weight by going to the gym once and working out. We don't learn a piano piece by practicing one time. It takes that muscle memory of repetition. And repetition is the mother of all learning. Wherever you find yourself wanting more of, the invitation is to give yourself that consistency. Become your hero, become your champion, become the one that you've been waiting for, and show up for yourself. Give yourself what you need. Take the time, the risk, and the care to craft the rituals and the everyday practices that allow you to feel safer with you. Thank you so much for joining us on Then, Now, and Tomorrow. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. I'm Rajkumari Niyogi. So long for now.